US and Western intelligence analysts predicted that Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky's government would collapse within a week if Russia launched a full-scale invasion of the nation in late February. In today's video, we'll talk about the war between Russia and Ukraine and predict its eventual outcome. Do your best not to miss out. Remember to subscribe to War Explorer as well. With that, let's not waste any more time and get down to the video. If Kiev, Ukraine's capital, falls, the Biden administration will have to decide whether or not to officially back a Ukrainian rebel movement based in the west of the country. It turns out that 6 months is all it takes for a lot of stuff to shift about. Well, let's have a look and see. Russia's military operation may be on its last legs, but it's still risky, and the front lines in Ukraine have not budged in the previous 2 months, so casualties are piling up on both sides. The war's result is also unclear, despite earlier predictions of a quick and easy Russian victory. For its 2022 issue, Foreign Policy consulted a panel of 6 experts from the United States and Europe to learn more about the future of the war in Ukraine. One scenario was a total military failure on the part of Russia, while others envisioned a nuclear attack in a frozen conflict similar to what occurred in neighboring Georgia. Offensive counterattacks. Although most analysts agree that the Russian military is particularly vulnerable right now due to a lack of troops and the fact that the Ukrainians are bolstering their attacks with the sophisticated US and Western provided multiple rocket launch systems like the high mobility artillery rocket system, a drawn-out conflict is still the most likely outcome. The tide of this conflict is about to turn, and the Ukrainians will almost certainly launch a counter-offensive. A think tank expert on the Russian military, Michael Kaufman, said that it was uncertain how likely it was to succeed. In any case, it looks like the fight will drag on for quite some time. Kherson, a province in southern Ukraine famous for its watermelons and occupied by Russia in the opening days of the war, has been threatened by Ukrainian officials for weeks as the site of a massive invasion that will precede a full-scale assault on Russian military bases and supply points in the Crimean Peninsula. But the Russian military hasn't hit rock bottom just yet. According to Jim Townsend, the former US Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Europe and NATO during the Obama administration, a counteroffensive that the Ukrainians might execute is not going to look like something out of Hollywood. He went on to say, it's not going to be a great El Alamein charge against German Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, referring to the crucial fight in North Africa during World War II. The pace will come down and there will be more organization and vetting. We've got a lot of time invested in this. Let's watch frozen conflict right now. The Kremlin, however, is trying to pull the battle in the wrong direction just as Ukraine is beginning to feel more confident about a prospective counteroffensive. After the week's unprecedented injection, the Biden administration must now return to Congress to request further cash from armaments from Ukraine, which might test the West's patience to its breaking point if the crisis drags on indefinitely. The difficulty Russia has had in recruiting new soldiers for the conflict in Ukraine has led many observers to conclude that Kiev is gaining a personal advantage, but perhaps not enough to launch a major counteroffensive and retake huge areas of territory previously controlled by the Kremlin. According to Dara Masikot, a senior policy analyst at the Rand Corporation who monitors Russia's military, where Russia's driving this is to be a frozen conflict for long until they are given a chance to rejuvenate. In other words, it can allow them to sit there and hope that the world moves on and sit there for a year or two until they start to see the results of some form of procurement or repair. This could be similar to Russia's military strategy in Georgia, where it created 2 separatist enclaves after the 2008 war, or in Ukraine, where the Kremlin solidified its gains in the Donbass and continued to intermittently shell Ukrainian positions after seizing Crimea in 2014. Masikot claimed that Russia is sleepy because of its casualties, which US officials say at over 20,000 military deaths. Ukraine estimates that more than twice as many Russian forces have been killed. The Russian military has ordered more deliveries of Soviet-era hardware, like the BMP-2 amphibious vehicle from the 1980s, as a result of Western sanctions and export controls, and the Kremlin announced on Thursday that it would mobilize 137,000 more troops for the Russian armed forces by the beginning of the year. As many as 4,000 Russian armored vehicles have been lost in Ukraine since February, according to the Pentagon. It has been reported that Russian workers are putting in triple shifts at missile manufacturers in an effort to replenish the country's depleting stockpile of precision weapons. Now, let's start with the economic boom. On Wednesday, Ukraine celebrated its independence from Russia, marking 6 months since the conflict began. the United States and Great Britain took the opportunity to reiterate their commitment to the conflict. The Biden administration has promised an additional $3 billion in military aid, though the bulk of it won't arrive for months and will require intensive training and military cooperation with Ukraine. Meanwhile, ongoing British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has made yet another trip to Kiev to show solidarity with Zelensky. Experts say Russia is hoping the economic headwinds from the war and the West's funding of Ukraine will grow too harsh in the coming months. Record natural gas and electricity prices are crushing Europe, a consequence of Russian President Vladimir Putin's conflict. The Kremlin may have influence over countries like Germany in the winter due to Russia's large natural gas reserves and the potential to cause economic damage to European countries relying on Russian commodities. Dmitry Alperovich, the executive chairperson at Silverado Policy Accelerator, believes that Putin is aware that he has the economic advantage. He's playing a gas game with Europe by rationing gas deliveries. There is a possibility of a severe economic downturn throughout Europe, especially in Germany. When Russia invaded Ukraine in a major way, it was met with more than just bombs, rockets and bullets. It has also served as a laboratory for the 21st century signature form of economic warfare in which Western sanctions and export controls target the Kremlin, while Russian strikes on Ukrainian infrastructure provide a countervailing force. Moscow has felt the effects of the economic sanctions, but the Russian blast waves have weakened Ukraine's defense industrial base, which was once among the strongest in the former Soviet Union. Ukraine's military-industrial base has been susceptible to missile attacks and artillery barrages for the past 6 months, Massacot, an analyst from the RAND Corporation, stated. It's not in a good situation and it's getting help from outside. This week, the Wall Street Journal reported that Ukraine was having trouble paying its troops. Ukraine also requires financial support to succeed. According to the World Bank, by the end of 2019, 55% of Ukrainians will be living below the poverty line as a direct result of the war and subsequent displacement. The Russians still believe they're winning, Johnson said. They managed to completely wreck the Ukrainian economy. Here, let's have a look at the Black Swan. Although Russia has not yet used nuclear or widespread chemical weapons in the conflict in Ukraine, the Kremlin's refusal to let United Nations inspectors into the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, Europe's largest such facility, has raised the specter of a nuclear meltdown or another unlikely event, swinging the battlefield advantage towards Russia. According to reports, Russia cut off power to the plant on Thursday, which could leave portions of Ukraine without electricity and endanger the reactor's cooling systems, increasing the possibility of a meltdown. Alperovich speculated that the potential for a nuclear disaster was being used in order to justify the plant's closure on the grounds of safety. The Ukrainians' ability to generate enough electricity, even to heat their houses, would be severely compromised if that were to occur as winter approached. Russia may not welcome direct encounters with all Black Swans. For instance, if Russia were to fire a missile into NATO territory in an effort to weaken the Ukrainians' resolve, the West would undoubtedly respond aggressively. Ukrainian officials claim that Russian agents attempted to assassinate Zelensky several times in the early stages of the conflict, and some observers are concerned that a successful Kremlin attempt to arrest or murder the military leader could dampen rising Ukrainian morale. Townsend, a former Pentagon officer, said, "If they do get Zelensky, I just can't imagine what that would unleash in the West. I mean, golly, if they lock him up or put him on trial or whatever, the current situation could be severely boosted by several factors." Will you predict when this war will end? Please share your thoughts in the space provided below. Well, I guess we're done here for today. Sincerely, we hope that this video was entertaining. We can't do this without you, so please subscribe to our channel and check out more of our fantastic videos.